I don't know who needs to hear this, but the waiver wire in week 10 of fantasy football is quite literally elite. There are league winners sitting there, and I don't want you guys to add the traps. Here are the top players you need to add to make sure you get an advantage over your league mates. So help us hit the like goal as we get into this video, and I expose all of that for you, starting with the priority list. Number 1, Tajay Spears. Value as a pass-catching running back. He's getting more routes run per game than Tony Pollard. Him and Bam Knight are essentially elite premium handcuff running backs, just like Darnell Mooney and the Bills defense to round out our priority list. Those are the top guys you're getting if they are still available for you. And you could call me crazy, but the number 1 waiver ad of this week, I'll start with the top, is going to be Parker Washington for reasons you might not think. 17 fantasy points last week, catching 8 of his 9 total targets for 90 yards. I mean, that was the best fantasy day he's had all season, the best fantasy day for any of the Jaguars wide receivers. A big portion of that, though, came because he played the most snaps, running the most routes because of the injuries. You can thank Brian Thomas Jr. for exiting this game early with an ankle injury. His status is in question for week 10. You can thank De'Ami Brown, who suffered a concussion halfway through this game. He likely won't play in week 10. And also Travis Hunter landed himself on IR. He's not going to come back until the earliest of week 16. You might as well cross him out for the rest of the fantasy football season, leaving Parker Washington as the minimum wide receiver 2 for a long time in this Jaguars offense, who is 11th in passing attempts so far this year. That likely will not change. They are sitting at 5-3. Very much in the playoff hunt for this year, with some pass-heavy matchups coming. Even Brenton Strange is questionable with a hip injury coming into next week. In the back portion of last week's game, all of those weapons were injured. Parker Washington averaged over a 30% team target share, and it's not like he's a nobody. Like, he's had monster games filling in for these other injured wide receivers and pass catchers in previous seasons. He is the number 1 slot wide receiver replacement. If we know anything about fantasy football and how the NFL works, slot wide receivers get targeted at a higher clip than the outside guys. AKA, look at a Wan'Dale Robinson, look at a Demario Douglas or Stephon Diggs when he was the wide receiver 1. We will get into that later. But a lot of potential league winners are on the waiver wire this week. So stick around to the end of the video and make sure you are subscribed to get this video every single week, because we'll be ahead on the waiver wire consistently over your league mates with Luke Musgrave. He is just as urgent of an ad as Parker Washington. Tucker Kraft coming into week 9. Overall tight end 1 of the year. Then he unfortunately tears his ACL. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. And we know Jordan Love loves targeting tight ends in the red zone. He has one of the highest tight end target rate there in the entire NFL, right next to Lamar Jackson, who's targeting his tight ends at a 33% rate, which is great for our new number 1 tight end option, a guy that's been viable in this offense before. He's been with the team for a few years, most notably in his rookie season when he was the tight end 1, averaging 7 fantasy points per game in games over 70% of the snaps. He is the main pass catching tight end, and he was when Tucker Kraft was out. 23 of the total 29 snaps after he went out, running every single route at the position. This team does pass heavy, and this team does have some pretty pass heavy scripts coming in the next few weeks against the Eagles, Giants, Vikings, and Lions in their next 4. Just be aware, Jayden Reed is going to come back eventually. Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks are all going to be healthy. He will be a bit more inconsistent when that time does come, just like a top waiver wire ad as well in Christian Watson, who might not seem like a top guy at first because he only put up 7.8 fantasy points, but it's about the advanced stats. And follow me into that, because Watson ran the 2nd most routes out of all wide receivers in last week. Against the Panthers, he ran 30 total routes, right next to Romeo Doubs at 37. This is only his 2nd week coming back from a super serious injury he suffered last week. His snaps are going to increase, therefore his routes will increase as well. The downside of Christian Watson and the Packers wide receivers in general is that they're running a very annoying 5 wide receiver system. There never really is going to be a true wide receiver 1, but with Kraft injured, a ton of wide receivers are banged up right now. It opens up a good amount of targets available for Christian Watson and this team. They aren't going to look as bad as they did against the Panthers every single week. They get the Eagles in week 10, which is about neutral as far as fantasy points to wide receivers go and the matchup itself. We know Christian Watson doesn't need an elite level of a target share to be fantasy viable. He is used in a way that this offense doesn't need to do that. So he's been increasing his snaps. That's going to continue. He's only been playing for 2 games. Hold him and Colston Loveland, a player that has been in our stash videos for the longest time. I swear, guys, if you are not subscribed yet, please go through and do that. And I'm not even trying to victory lap. It feels like we almost called out every single league winner so far in breakout this year in those videos. So congratulations if you've been around this page and you found this page now. I'll continue to do that deep dive research for you. The stash video is going to be coming in a few days, but now it's time to go get Colston Loveland, who nearly dropped 30 fantasy points last week, catching 6 of his 7 total targets for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now we do have to be realistic here. It was against a Bengals defense who was top 2 in fantasy points allowed to tight ends. They're top 5 in everything else allowed to offenses: yards, touchdowns, efficiency. But the Bears didn't go through and draft a tight end at the number 10 overall pick to just not use him. The second straight week the Bears have been without Cole Kmet has skyrocketed Colston Loveland's usage and playing time, which is more important. He's showing them that that is the right choice, and they should continue to do that. Back-to-back weeks of over a 90% route participation rate. He's been the more efficient route runner on a per route basis than Cole Kmet so far this year. And they do get some very pass-first matchups against the Giants, Vikings, and Steelers in their next 3. Now, we will get Cole Kmet back. It's trending towards him not playing this week against the Giants, which is going to make Colston Loveland that much more urgent of an add and probably even a start. When he does come back, Loveland's value is going to come back down to earth a little bit. But again, they drafted him this high for a reason. He is clearly the more talented and useful tight end. He will be a viable guy at some point in the year. He's worth a stash for us. That is not a question. Speaking of talent, you can go through and get JJ McCarthy. Even if you don't need a quarterback super bad, you can play defense on your league mates that do. In his first game back, he drops 19.9 fantasy points on a pretty inefficient day, if we're being completely honest. He only completed 14 of his total 25 passing attempts, 2 touchdowns, and interception. He did rush for 1 as well, but that's after not playing football for a whole 2 months. It's not necessarily terrible. He does have rushing upside. That does give him a floor as well. Not to mention, he is playing with probably, if not top 3, the best weapons in the league in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, even Jalen Naylor, I guess, if you want to add him there. But more importantly, on top of the weapons, he has one of the easiest rest of season schedules for quarterbacks. You likely won't be throwing him into your starting lineup this second with confidence, but you look at his matchups. I mean, he gets the Ravens this week, who are top 5 in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks and yardage as well. The Bears right after. And then in the fantasy playoffs, he gets the Cowboys, Giants, and Lions, who are all top 10, if not top 5 in fantasy points and yards allowed. So grab him before the rest of your league mates do. The more he plays, the more he'll get acclimated to the NFL, and the better he will be in fantasy football. So go get him and Theo Johnson, who continues to be a top target for Jackson Dart this year. Since Dart's first real start in week 5, he's averaged almost 6 targets per game, only behind Wan'Dale Robinson, and leads the team in red zone target rate per game, despite having one of the hardest fantasy schedules so far to start the season. We know if you look at the Giants just in general, they had a really tough start to the year. It eases out. If you just look at the Giants as a total team, we know they had one of, if not the hardest starting schedules to the year. The good news, it eases up completely. Theo Johnson is going to be running a ton of routes. He's already running a ton of routes on this offense. The number 1 tight end in that on the team. There's not that much of competition or a question, but the top defenses we can go through and add this week. You're getting the Bills. They get a great matchup against the Miami Dolphins, who are top 3 in fantasy points and yardage allowed to opposing defenses. They're already rostered in about 50% of leagues, though, so if you can't get them, just like the Seahawks, they're going to be our number 2 option here, getting the Cardinals again, rostered in a high amount of leagues. So if you can't get any of those guys, more than likely your top option is going to be the Jets, getting a matchup against the Browns, who are averaging over 7 fantasy points per game to opposing defenses. The Jets are coming off their bye. Sauce Gardner will likely be healthy. Dylan Gabriel has been one of the least efficient starting quarterbacks in the league. You can also go through and add the Browns at the same time. This game has one of, if not the lowest projected game total of the week. There's not going to be a ton of scoring. Both of these defenses are pretty decent on their own. The Jets offense has been pretty consistent up and down all year. One thing they have been consistent on is turning the ball over, though, which again is really good for defenses. Their offensive line is terrible. I can expect Myles Garrett to have another career game and put up 3 sacks. So when you're a Jets team that doesn't have a ton of playmakers to make the Browns defense a risky play, it's a top 1 for you, as well as the Panthers defense, who have been able to crush in positive matchups, dropping 10 points on the Packers, 17 on the Jets, but -2 against the Bills and 0 against the Cowboys in the last 4 or 5 games. So it definitely is a risky option, but this is a positive matchup they get this week against the New Orleans Saints. Very risky. Be aware of that. I do drop my full defensive rankings for every single week. I will be dropping that in a few weeks. So make sure to hit that follow button, like the video if you haven't already, to make sure you see that one. And you can also add Brandon McManus, Jaime Fairbairn, and Chase McLaughlin as your top kickers off the waiver wire. Make sure to ask me any questions you guys got in the comments. I will answer as many as I can. That's finishing out this video, though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one coming soon. All glory to the man above.